Don't bottle it in. Don't keep it all to yourself. There's a lot of help out there, and for me, unfortunately, I just didn't know that the help was available at that time. Don't be afraid. Just do have the courage. I'm telling you now, anyone who may have felt this or going through this, stand up and have the courage to speak up.
When we launched Dirty Linen almost 200 episodes ago, the idea was that we'd start talking about a topic and see what happened, see who else wanted to weigh in. Our thinking was to create more space to talk, to operate against a media and general discourse trend that tended towards sound bites and lists and short grabs. We might not exhaust a topic, we might not solve complex issues, but we will give them a good go, we'll shake them all around, and always we welcome a diversity of voices. That is the Dirty Linen Project. This fortnight we've been talking about anti-Asian racism, and I'm really pleased that Will Mahusay has put himself forward to become part of the conversation. Will is from Sydney, Cebu Lechon, and I really enjoyed his conversation on my brother podcast, Deep in the Weeds with Anthony Huck. Will, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Hi, Dani. Hello. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good morning. It's a freezing one in Melbourne today, and I'm assuming that sunny Sydney is a more pleasant place to be.
It's quite chilly. I mean, the sun is out, but the wind chill is definitely, getting you.
All right, good. Well, I don't have to be jealous of you on that count. So, Will, thank you so much for putting yourself forward to be part of Dirty Linen. It's always been the project that, if people have something to say, we welcome them putting themselves forward to be part of the conversation. I just want to thank you for listening to the discussions we've been having over the past week or so about racism towards people with Asian heritage. How have these conversations struck you?
First, it obviously struck a chord. That topic or that area is close to my heart. And I say that because I've lived it or experienced it. It's something that was demonstrated towards me, and growing primary school all the way to senior years. And sometimes, there are times that I still feel that sort of energy in my adult years. So and I really am so thankful that you've done something about that subject or that topic and bringing light towards it. I know it's somewhat maybe for lack of a better term taboo, but the fact that you've just put it out there, I was so happy that you did that.
Well, I'm glad that you're happy that it's been aired. I have to say, I found it really, really tricky and difficult in some ways, because I feel like it is really important to highlight prejudice and inequality, because hopefully when more people know about it or think about it or are confronted by the reality of it, that it creates change, and it moves us closer to having equality of opportunity and just all living on this earth together in peace and harmony. But I know it's not something that everybody wants to talk about, and that includes the people who are the victims of racism. So it's a tricky one, it's a tricky one.
It is, and it can be very, I would say, sensitive for both the person that's gone through it and perhaps the people out there that may be listening to what we're about to discuss. And the reason why I go through this with you was that I would love to be one of those people that would bring awareness towards this issue, and because I know with awareness comes obviously education, and then the next steps is the changes. But this to getting that sort of shift in the way you and I treat ourselves and people.
So Where do you want this conversation to go? What would you like to talk about? What would you like to share?
Well, from I remember clearly arrived because we arrived. We immigrated from the island of Cebu in the Philippines. When I got here, I was grade 5, primary school, and straight away, days after I was enrolled and I started, attending primary school. I was already pushed around and physically pushed around because I was like a minority, like literally a minority. I'm in my school of hundreds of kids. I don't know, maybe I was like 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 15 kid, Southeast Asian or Oriental heritage or descent. And I didn't really think nothing of it for such a long time. I thought it was just, I don't know, like banter or jokes until, it got pretty bad. Like I really got like more pushed around, more physically sort of abuse, you know, that included name callings. And and that went and that went on throughout primary school, grade 5 and grade 6, and then I still didn't do anything about it. I didn't tell anyone about it really. I sort of kept it to myself, and then years later, went into high school, year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10. It still went on. It was only up until I think year 9 from memory, or maybe year 10, where I really realized like I need to stand up for myself. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. This is not right. But before that, I sort of I absorbed it all. The name calling. I'd get called like the typical names that I would get called, or people would yell out and go back to China. I mean, I wasn't even from China, from Cebu, Philippines, but yeah, it's like that stereotype. And they would pull their eyes back to make it look obviously more oriental, and start teasing me, and they would call me names like gook, slanty eyes, slaphead, all those things that obviously, like, to that extent it was pretty severe. The name calling, all those name calling that you could think of.
Well, it's so awful. It's so awful. I mean, kids, I guess, can really be really mean, and I guess people sort of use what they think their weapons are. But it's so awful that that's what you experienced, and that you didn't feel that you were able to talk about it. I mean, did you come here with any siblings? I mean, were you able to talk about it with anybody?
I didn't, and that's the reason, because I thought it it only happened to me, so I thought maybe there's something wrong like with me. If that makes I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah.
and it wasn't just in school. Like when I was, in when you're talking like 10s and 20 or 30 years back ago, growing up in that age in western part of Sydney, where predominantly it was all Anglo Aussies, I would have people driving in their car, and they would throw like stuff at me and yell out, "Go back to China!" Slaphead, and gook again. Those names. That also happened outside of school, and yeah, I experienced that many times, but sort of just sucked it up, and it questioned myself, like there were stages in my life where in that part of my life that made me question, oh, what's wrong with me? And what was even more tough, not just being Asian in a predominantly white neighborhood, was that I was also gay and minority Asian, and being gay in that area of Western Sydney where if you're gay, you're not supposed. It's not normal to be gay in that area back in those years. So there were so many struggling points that I endured.
Yeah, that is a real lot to be dealing with, and to be dealing with by yourself. I mean, one of the things that happens when people are marginalized and yeah, abused in the way that you were is that they internalize feelings of shame. I mean, did you feel that? Did you have feelings of shame?
Of course, yeah, of course. But I just kept it all to myself, and I guess that's where, when you bottle things up, and then it's never good bottling things up. There will come a point in someone's life that there's that sort of popping or breaking point per se, and yeah, and then my breaking point was like, I almost at one stage, borderline, uh, refused to be Asian, if that makes sense, and I wanted to be more Aussie, um, so that I could be one of the Aussies and not be bullied about the shape of my eye, or the color of my skin, or the color of my hair. Um, yeah, and then there were two struggling points: that my race, my background, and also my sexuality, being gay. And like, I doubted myself, like I didn't have any confidence. My self esteem was extremely low, very low, and I just wanted to do something to fit in, because I didn't feel that. Yeah, I felt that I didn't fit in, because of those things.
So, I mean, what did you do to try to not be Asian?
I would try and make more non-Asian friends, for example. I would I would eat like more non-Asian food, like meat pies and stuff like that, kebab. Um, just to really, those little things. And I would try and uh, lose my accent, because I was 10 years old. I wasn't born here, so having grown up for the first 10 years of my life in the Philippines, I still carried that accent, quite heavily back then. There's probably still a little bit of it right now, even when I'm 46. But yeah, at that time, I would like, when I'm walking to school, I would sort of practice like saying stuff like, "G'day, mate," like, like putting on that accent, like, how you doing, like, how's your day going, like, yeah. um
Wow.
so just little stuff like that, little practical stuff that I thought could help
And
make me,
did it make a difference?
uh I guess, because it allowed me to sort of conversation, um sometimes, uh if the communication doesn't fit right in with, I don't know, with people. Sometimes you could be pigeonholed, and but in that context, in that environment, at that time where I was, um, having that sort of, I don't know, accent or speaking like that really made me feel like I fit in, and really made me feel, somewhat normal. And yeah, I it actually did work, because then I would, greet them like that, and they would say, "Oh, like, maybe in their mind, oh, he's one of us," or like, he's not fresh off the boat, but all that. Yeah,
Oh, but I mean, at the same time as you're quote unquote fitting in and being accepted, did you also have like parallel feelings of, well, I am perhaps being accepted more, or I'm being abused less, but I'm not being the real me?
of course, yeah, and that's when, for so many years, I almost lost, or I lost parts of my identity, in terms of like, me, myself, like, who am I? Am I abnormal, or am I is this normal or is this abnormal? And then what about my heritage? What about my culture? It's something that I didn't sort of do anything about, and I just put that on the back burner. And it was only in my towards my later my adult years that I started to uh, wanted to discover and rediscover more of my heritage. Um, and then, like, how many years ago, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, that's when I started to go through that discovery or rediscovery, uncovering process of my culture, my heritage. And I'm so proud to say right now that I'm one of those people that are advocates of my heritage, my culinary culture, just like Grace and Fides, the entrepreneurs, or the lovely, women that make up the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, well, it's such must have taken such a journey for you to get to that point, and it makes me wonder, Will. At the same time as you were experiencing all of these awful things that you were going through, your parents were starting the restaurant and showcasing Filipino cuisine. I mean, how did you feel about that?
Well, that I was so young when they did that. That was back in 1991. I was what, year nine, I think, from memory. And and they didn't know all of this. I I really didn't open up to anyone. Because again, I just felt like it was, it's something that I had to deal with, and or if I don't deal with it, then just sort of absorb it. And it did affect me when I was going into my late 20s or early 20s, and towards my early 30s and mid 30s. Uh, Again, affected my identity. It really so much self doubt, and yeah, so much self doubt. Like I developed a lot of these inner voices that wants to tear you down, that that tells you that you only deserve to be here, you don't deserve to progress any further. I don't know if I hope that makes sense, but um and then those were the battles that I had to deal with, and I kept on soldiering on in the way I know how. And to a point, it took a toll on me. And this is a bit sensitive, I suppose, but something that, if anyone is listening, and perhaps if they've felt or if they know anyone that's gone through something like this, or if they suspect anyone that's gone through like this, yeah, do reach out to them, ask them, are you okay? And we don't have answers, but just knowing that you're gonna be there for someone, or that person knowing that they'll be there, that you'll be there for them, sometimes enough. Because yeah, it led me to having that thoughts of self harm at one stage, because again, I thought I didn't belong.
Yeah, it's so sad, and such a powerful illustration of how damaging it is when people aren't included, when there's this othering and just marginalizing people. It's just so devastating and can have such far-reaching and such long-term impacts. I mean, Will, I wonder if, have you spoken to your parents about it at any point, like as you started to deal with it more yourself, or come to terms with it, or find yourself more? Were you able to speak to your parents? Because I mean, I can only imagine that they were probably experiencing racism in their own arenas.
Yes, and if they, and I have no doubts they probably have, and again, it's probably something that they kept to themselves. We never talked about it, casually or formally. And I, in the last decade, it's something that I have opened up to them. But for the majority of my pre-teens, teens, young adult, and sort of past the young professional young adult stage, it was something that I held on to myself, and I bottled it on. And yeah, and again, don't do that. Don't bottle it in. Don't keep it all to yourself. There are help out there. There's a lot of help out there that you can seek advice, and it's something that I would never want anyone to is to say deal with it yourself, because no, you just don't want to take that risk. And and for me, unfortunately, I just didn't know that the help was available at that time. But right now there's so many help out there. um speak to speak to your family members, speak to your friends, or speak to like Lifeline, or those non-for-profit organizations. There's so many out there, so don't be afraid. Yeah, don't be afraid. Just do have the courage. Unfortunately, at that time, I didn't have the courage, but you know, I'm telling you now, anyone who may have felt this or going through this, yeah, stand up and have the courage to speak up.
Well, I mean, I think you did show enormous courage to, continue and to, to turn up to school every day and to, build a life. I think that does show enormous courage. So don't be too hard on yourself for not standing up for yourself. I think even to know how wrong it is what you're experiencing, I mean, that is, that has to click for you, doesn't it? It's not just, this is just something that's happening. It's like, no, actually, this is wrong. I mean, it took you a while to get to that point. Hopefully, the more these kinds of things are aired, the more people have the idea right from the beginning that, no, it's not okay. No one should be spoken to like that. Nobody should be treated like that. Will, what was it that has allowed you to, I guess, change paths and live in this enormous victory of being so proud of your heritage and sharing it with the Australian community? That's an incredible turnaround.
Definitely. And I mean, if you're gonna live like in a different shoe or someone else's shoe, you can only walk on it for so long, and then eventually you'll realize it's not the right fit for you, or it's not the right comfort for you. That would be the analogy I like to use. So putting on that persona, like, yeah, how you going, mate, and all that, like, yeah, I still I still speak like that whenever I have some banter with mates, but I don't usually or my cousins or and sort of speak like that. But going at, I guess the silver lining was that I was like, wait a minute, I've done this, or I've been trying to be like this for 10 years or 15 years. There's something missing. So I dropped that, and I'm like, I assessed myself, and I said, look, I'm Filipino. Well, as my dad is Chinese, but he was raised in the Philippines, married to my mum, who's from Cebu, Philippines. I was born in Cebu, Philippines. I was raised there. And then, at some stage in my life, I just felt a bit, there was something missing. And that was one of that pieces that were missing: my heritage, my culture, my food, the way we just do things as Filipino people, Filipino community or family. And then that's when I started in 2001. I went back to the Philippines, and since 2001 up until pre-COVID, or 2019, I think it was, I kept on going back to the Philippines at least 3 or sometimes 4 times a year to learn more about my culture, about cooking, about the food, about everything. Everything that is to know about my island, the people, and that's what drew me back. And actually, it was food. Food drew me back to my heritage, to my culture. I've always said food always has this way of reconnecting or connecting you back to your roots. Yeah, and I'm now at the forefront of really bringing Filipino food or Filipino cuisine to be, hopefully someday, be part of mainstream Australia.
Well, I think you're definitely doing that. And I just think it's what you're doing already seemed great to me, like to bring this beautiful food of Cebu to Sydney and to spread the word more broadly throughout Australia. But to now know how difficult it's been for you to feel secure enough to show that pride in your heritage, it just impresses me so much and makes me feel just even more excited about the project that you've embarked upon.
It's almost 30 years in the peak to be where I am. But mind you, I did study culinary back in mid late 90s, something that I didn't continue on. I'm so proud doing what I'm doing, to be able to stand together with the likes of Louisa Brimble, and the wonderful powerhouse women of the entrepreneurs. You got the Filipino food movement that's based here in Sydney. Everyone just doing their own thing to really, as a community, we call it Bayanihan spirit. Bayanihan spirit is when you all come together and for a greater cause. And our cause is really to bring Filipino culture or food or cuisine to be part of mainstream Australian everyday discussions. Yeah.
Do you reckon things have changed much in Australia? I mean, you've gone on this personal journey, and there's no doubt that Filipino food is gaining more and more prominence, as indeed it should. And you're a big part of that, as is Louisa Brimble, as are the entrepreneurs, Ross McNay, like just some really fantastic people that are bringing that forth. But do you feel that a kid coming from Cebu or from Sierra Leone or wherever and going to primary school in Australia, do you feel like anything's changed? Do you feel like people are going to have different experiences, that there's going to be more tolerance and understanding?
I believe that. I believe that because the reason why I believe that is because, let's say, someone that may have arrived from the Philippines last year and they've enrolled in primary school, there would be more self-awareness and education around how we treat ourselves and others. Whereas at that time, back in mid or late 80s, there wasn't really much going on around that. In this day and age, in this millennial sort of time, there's so many campaigns out there, there's so many podcasts, there's so many talks out there, whether it's children's TV show or media, mainstream media, talking, shedding awareness and light towards this subject topic. So people are more self-aware and people are more accepting, not just tolerable, but accepting and respecting of others. Yeah, there's still going to be cases of racism and discrimination and whatnot. But I would say, if I was to compare it like 30 years ago, it's definitely improved. Like Australia as a whole, for me, and I can gauge that, because if I was to go, in an RSL back in the 90s, the energy that I would feel is so much different to the energy that I would feel now. I mean, right now, I go to a workers' club or an RSL to grab some pub grub dinner, bistro style dinner. There's a lot more diversity. So that's the key word. There's so much more diversity now. There's more respect now. There's more acceptance, not just tolerance. And
do you ever get people yelling stuff out to you on the street anymore?
The last time I experienced that was, I would say probably, in the late 90s. Yeah, so that was some time ago. But there are still times that, like I said, it hasn't been fully eradicated, and I'm not sure if it will be eradicated, something like this, in the next 2 or 3 years. It is baby steps. It is a process, but we have come such a long way. I mean, Australia has come such a long way, and I'm so proud of the general public, those people those Australians that really decided, hey, we're better off. You know, diversity is a lot better, and we're better off accepting, you know, everyone rather than, you know, this is just all about this particular color of skin and whatnot. So, and I'm so proud that Australia has really has changed, and I do see changes, and I have seen changes, and I believe that it will continue to change for the positive, for the good.
That's I'm pleased to hear that. What about as a gay man? Have you experienced discrimination, or do you feel in any way marginalized because of that part of your identity?
Then yes, but you know, with a lot of again, it all came down to awareness and education, and people don't know what they don't know. Back then, when I was growing up, you know, being gay was not normal. I was teased. I was called, you know, I was called names like fag and, you know, all those things that, yeah, you'll censor that out. But there's like so many names that I was called, and again, me being an Asian gay kid, you know, me being an Asian kid was already tough, like really, really, really tough. Being gay and Asian as a kid or as a teenager or as a human being was like a double sort of whammy. I denied that part of myself. I tried to make myself think that, no, I have to be straight. You know, I have to be straight to get opportunities, let alone, yeah. And I tried to act straight. I tried to, I don't know if that's weird, but yeah, or dress straight, like, or talk straight. Yeah, it was really, really tough.
Well, I mean, your journey's been extraordinary, and I'm just really thrilled that you've sort of ended up where you are, and I'm just sorry that the path's been so difficult, but like, good on you for being the change that you want to see, and, you know, that we all need to see in our society. It's super impressive, and let's celebrate with some roast pork one day soon.
Yes, please, and hopefully you can come up to Sydney, or when I'm planning on a pop-up down there in Melbourne, to bring Cebu Lechon in Melbourne as a pop-up. So you'll be one of the first people to know, and get you to try.
I can't wait. Will, thank you so much for reaching out to have a chat today on Dirty Linen. It's been an absolute privilege to have you share this part of your story. Thank you so much.
Much for the opportunity. Thank you so much, Dani.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtyLinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.